You might not feel sick enough to go to the emergency room, but you know something isn't right. You feel tired, you have brain fog, you're achy, you're holding on to stubborn weight that just won't budge. This cluster of symptoms is often a sign of something we call chronic inflammation. Basically, you have a smoldering fire in your system that must be put out. The fire hose is literally your fork. But this is no joke. Chronic inflammatory diseases are now recognized as a major driver of death worldwide, and most of them are strongly impacted by what we eat. In this episode, I'm going to walk you through what exactly happens inside your body if you stop eating inflammatory foods for just 14 days, what can change, and what you might notice, and how to do it without feeling miserable or deprived. Now let's dive in. Hi, I'm Dr. Monti from the Marcus Institute at Thomas Jefferson University. Welcome to House Call. Before we get into the 14-day detox, let's talk about inflammation, which is one of the body's ways of dealing with an injury or infection. Think of swelling and fever caused by a set of chemicals released in the body to protect us. And once the job is done, things usually go back to normal. But what if I told you that factors in today's world cause those same chemicals to release all the time? Maybe in smaller amounts, but continuously, resulting in a low-grade, smoldering fire that slowly damages everything around it. A big place that starts is in the gut from food we put into it. But that fire can work its way all the way to the attic, our brain. We call this type of inflammatory mess metabolic inflammation or metinflammation. And when it's chronic, a big culprit is the modern Western diet or American diet, where you are bombarding your system day after day with refined sugar, ultra-processed grains, and unhealthy oils. Your cells react to these toxic things as if they're under constant threat. And in response, they release the inflammatory chemicals. That chronic low-grade fire damages your mitochondria, the energy factories in your cells. That's why you're tired. It drives insulin resistance, which is why you crave sugar, and why the weight around your middle won't move. And unlike that cut on your finger that settles down in a few days, this fire doesn't go out on its own, because most of us keep throwing fuel on it 3 times a day or more. One of the biggest sources of that fuel is what I call inflammatory foods. So what do I mean by that? In my clinic, in my research, the repeat offenders are incredibly consistent. Ultra-processed foods loaded with added sugar and refined flour, industrial seed oils, and a long list of emulsifiers, dyes, thickeners, and artificial additives. Think about packaged snacks, drive-through meals, fries and chips, pastries, sugary breakfast cereals, canned foods, and many frozen entrees. I know, all the stuff you love, right? But one of the reasons it feels like you love them so much is that we get addicted to these things because, like drugs, they are industrially made and not part of what our body is engineered to thrive on. These products are made to be cheap, shelf-stable, and hyper-palatable, another word for delicious, and reinforcing, not to support the cells of your body and brain. Think about it. Real food, veggies, fruits, natural proteins, can't be thrown in a cabinet for months like chips and flour. Large studies on ultra-processed foods show that people who get their highest share of their calories from these products have a much higher risk of early death and chronic disease, including cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's. So when we talk about inflammatory foods, we're really talking about the modern American diet. A lot of sugar and starch, cheap oils and additives our biology did not evolve with. So who actually needs to cut out inflammatory foods? As a physician who specializes in nutrition and brain health, I'd have to say all of us would benefit. But if you're dealing with fatigue, brain fog, stubborn belly weight, or achy joints, this 14-day reset is especially for you. Since many of the foods on the list are manufactured like a drug, the body often reacts to stopping them with similar patterns. So where to start? The journey towards a diet that will support your lifespan starts with conquering the thing or things that you know you're attached to. For most of us, it's salty or sweet. Maybe it's chips of some kind in the evenings, or you have a sweet tooth and it's late night ice cream or other treats. Identify yours and make the commitment to have none of it for the next 2 weeks. If your addiction is salty processed foods, then eliminate them all. The simple carbs in them act like sugar, and all of the rest of the additives are a problem as well. If it's sweets, then not a sugary thing of any kind. That's table sugar, corn syrup, honey, and even fruit for now. My tips for success are to stay very hydrated and have transitional foods, as I like to call them. These are healthier whole food versions of your addictions. For you salt lovers, have in the pantry some unsalted walnuts, almonds, pumpkin seeds that you add a pinch of sea salt to. Also, buy some crunchy veggies like celery and have a couple healthy dips you enjoy like hummus or pesto. The key is to transition with foods you like enough. For my fellow sweet lovers, have some bars and other products sweetened only with non-caloric, natural sweetener like allulose, monk fruit, or stevia. Often keto-friendly products will work because they have low sugar and low net carbs, which turn into sugar. Go grocery shopping and have things ready for your 2-week detox. Now let's talk about the first phase, the withdrawal. This covers days 1 through 3 approximately, sometimes longer, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat this, no pun intended, but you will crave your drug. Countless patients have told it to me the same way. But here's the good news. Staying hydrated and using your transitional foods will help a lot. You might find yourself mindlessly opening the pantry, looking for something sweet, even if you just ate. Why does this happen? Because sugars and the simple carbs in processed foods trigger dopamine in the brain in the same reward center triggered by other addictive substances. Like other addictions, people often report that in the first few days of food detox that they feel irritable, sometimes get a dull headache, and even a dip in their mood. This is the brain throwing a tantrum because you took away its quick fix. You also might feel a bit of a brain fog or fatigue. During these first 72 hours, hydration is non-negotiable because the process can be somewhat dehydrating and you need to replenish those electrolytes. Once you push through that initial resistance, you hit phase 2, the turnaround. This is approximately days 4 through 7. Cravings start to diminish, and you might even notice losing some water weight. You see, inflammation causes fluid retention. Insulin holds onto sodium, and sodium holds onto water. As your insulin starts to level out because you aren't eating sugar and junk carbs, your kidney starts to dump that excess fluid, and a lot of that is inflammatory fluid. So you not only look more rejuvenated, but you start to feel it too. This break from ultra-processed foods is also when your gut begins to repair itself. Your intestinal lining is one of the fastest repairing tissues in the body. It turns over every 3 to 5 days. By removing the irritants in ultra-processed foods and replacing with healthier options that have plant fiber, the gut microbiome can better do its job in protecting you. The gut itself often feels much better and is not letting as many of those harmful substances into the bloodstream, wreaking havoc on your cells and causing the release of inflammation. By about day 7, you begin to notice something profound. Your energy isn't crashing all the time. When you were eating inflammatory foods, you were on a glucose roller coaster. Spike, crash, crash. That crash is what made you need a nap or a coffee in the afternoon. Now your blood sugar is stable. And the additives, dyes, preservatives, and so on in your ultra-processed addiction aren't calling your immune system to battle. Your mitochondria are no longer overwhelmed, and you begin to have steady energy. Now we enter the final phase, week 2, the new you. This is days about 8 through 14. This is where you realize that what you thought was normal aging was actually just inflammation. First, look at your skin. Research shows that high glycemic foods drive IGF-1, a growth factor that increases oil production and contributes to acne. By day 10, without those insulin spikes, the inflammation in the skin calms down. The redness fades, and you start to see a clearer complexion. Second, check in with your pain levels. Even people with arthritis notice that their pain has lessened by lowering systemic inflammation. You might find that you can get out of bed with less stiffness and a little more bounce in your step. You move more freely. A big change I often notice is in the brain. We talk about this extensively in my book, Brainweaver. When the body is inflamed, the brain is inflamed. The brain's immune cells, called microglia, are forced into attack mode, releasing neurotoxins and slowing down your processing speed. By day 14, as systemic inflammation continues to drop, the cells switch from attack mode to repair mode. Your mind is clearer and your mood is more even. You aren't snapping at your spouse or coworkers, and if you've been diligent with those cravings from day 1, they're gone. Your taste buds have actually reset, and now you're in control. You'll be able to make more dietary modifications with freer will. The goal is a nutrient-filled diet with lots of plants, vegetables, nuts, seeds, olive oil, and sufficient lean protein to help you thrive. Remember, it's not just about subtraction, it's about addition too. We need to flood the body with the raw materials it needs to repair the tapestry of your health. Here is your yes list for the next 14 days to nourish your body as it is withdrawing from toxic junk. These should be the core of your diet, along with the transitional foods that help you through that detox. First, cruciferous vegetables, one of my favorites. Broccoli, arugula, Brussels sprouts, kale. These contain compounds that help your liver detoxify the junk you've been storing. Second, healthy fats. This is crucial for your brain. Avocados, extra virgin olive oil, walnuts. You need these fats to rebuild your membranes. Third, the smash fish, as we call them. Salmon, mackerel, anchovies, sardines, herring. These are packed with omega-3 fats. And if you don't love them, have other fresh fish. Maybe they won't be as high, but they're still great for you. Because the omega-3 fats are the most potent anti-inflammatory nutrients we can get from food. They actively resolve inflammation. If you truly don't like fish and just can't eat it, then eat other lean proteins and pile on other omega-rich foods, or even consider a supplement. And I want to give you a specific metabolic hack to make this easier: food sequencing. When you sit down to eat your fiber and vegetables first, then eat your protein and fats. If you're going to have any whole foods with starches, save them for last and try to go with whole grain options whenever possible. Why? The fiber from veggies and whole grains creates a mesh in your intestines that slows down the absorption of sugar. This simple change in order can reduce your glucose spike significantly, keeping your insulin low and keeping you in that fat-burning anti-inflammatory zone. So that's our 14-day plan, 42 meals. Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with this. Many people that I talk to have forgotten what it feels like to feel good. They think being tired, achy, and foggy is just the price of getting older. It's not. It's the price of inflammation. So I really hope you'll give this a try. Start today, then come back to this video in 2 weeks and let me know how your energy, your pain, your mental clarity have changed. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to House Call. We're building a community dedicated to real science-based whole person health. And share this with someone you care about who might be struggling. And with that, this is House Call. I'm Dr. Dan Monti. Until next time, be well. All right, here's where we do Ask the Board, where the team asks me questions on Post-it notes while we're filming, so let's see what they came up with. You said if someone's addicted to sweets, even fruits are off the table for now. So for 2 weeks, are apples officially canceled? It's a great question because apples are the one fruit I sometimes allow during this transition because they're so high in fiber, but definitely off the table during this transition are bananas and grapes. Hydration is non-negotiable in the first 72 hours. How much are we talking here? Great question. Think of having 8 to 12 ounce servings of water, weak teas, things like that throughout the day. Smash fish, sardines, mackerel are great for health, but terrible for my office reputation. Should I eat them alone in my car? I guess that's one option. You could also save them for dinner. What are your best transitional snacks for late night cravings? Great question. What I find is that a lot of people struggle with wanting something sweet late at night. The reason for that is their blood sugar wants that spike to keep them going because they're really tired. Actually, the best thing to do when that's going on is have a glass of water and go to bed. But for those people who do want a little bit of sweet, I would say make a weak tea, something not caffeinated because it's late at night, and sweeten it with monk fruit, allulose, something that'll make it taste nice and soothing and sweet, but not add any type of blood sugar spike. I love this topic, but after hearing all this, I'm having an existential crisis. Am I actually the master of my body, or am I just a dopamine slave? Well, I think we're all a little of both because we live in a society where we're bombarded by things that create mini addictions in the brain. And so those dopaminergic reactions, we're pretty sensitive to them. So figure out what yours are. Don't be embarrassed. This isn't about shame. It's about owning our health and owning our health span so that we can thrive in the decades to come.